My name is David Schmitz, and I am a Liberal Democrat standing for the Council in Haringey and also for Parliament in Tottenham. And I hope a bit later on to explain why I think it's a good idea that I should stand for both of these positions. I was born in the United States, and my parents were both refugees from Hitler, having come from Austria. I've been living in Haringey Ward now for well over 20 years, and I think I have a grip on its problems and some sort of idea for its solutions. I've lived in Harringay Ward for over 20 years, and we've been living in this house for a bit over 5 years. The way that we came to live here is a little bit dramatic and in some ways rather sad. We were living next door, and an old lady who lived here unfortunately died about 6 years ago. And she left a son who was a hopeless drug addict. Unfortunately, he completely lost control of the place. It became a crack den. And what happened then was that after about a year, when there was enormous amounts of antisocial behavior, the police called many times. There were yardies, there were drug addicts, there was prostitution, there were fights, so forth. After about a year, what happened was that the place caught fire. And at that point, Valerie, my partner, and I bought the house from him. We spent a year doing it up. We were hoping that it would become a family home, and eventually we got lucky, and we now have a lovely 2-year-old daughter. I'm hoping very much to make a contribution to this ward, because my fate and that of my family is very much bound up in it. Life sometimes takes unpredictable turns, and in this case, it took the turn of driving me into politics, because I discovered, after trying to get the council to act on the problems caused by the drug addicts next door to us, that the council is really quite incapable of doing anything, including anything when, after I had given them quite clear advice, which I'm able to do as a barrister, as to what powers they had and what laws they could act upon. As a result of that, I have become very active locally, and I've become active with the Liberal Democrats, because I'm convinced that the team which we have is one which can deliver real change for the people of this borough.
Great, thanks very much for that introduction, David. Looking to the future now, I wonder if you could tell us something about your vision of Haringey over the next 5 to 10 years. And in particular, what one thing do you think would do more than any other to get us there? And what will you do to see that it's achieved?
Well, thank you, Hugh. Well, these statements of vision, I think, for them to be the most effective, need to be very straightforward and direct. I remember once hearing that Ernie Bevan, who was the Foreign Secretary in Attlee's government after the war, was asked what his foreign policy is. And he said, well, my foreign policy is to be able to go down to Victoria Station with a bag of sovereigns, buy a ticket, and go where the hell I like. Now, in that spirit, my vision for Harringay Ward is for it to be a place where, after dinner, you go out for a walk for nothing, no other reason than the sheer pleasure of it. Pleasure from meeting your neighbours, pleasure from looking at front gardens and the flowers there, pleasure from seeing the tree-lined streets and walking along the shops along green lanes. That's my vision for Harringay. As to how I get there, well, there isn't really one simple thing to do. It's a matter of getting that balance between having efficient public administration, so that services are delivered efficiently and cost effectively, so that that order is kept, so that we don't have a free-for-all with people deciding to subdivide houses and cram people into them, so that not every second shop on green lanes is a betting shop. You need order, you need the enforcement of the law, but it mustn't be so heavy-handed as to stifle creativity.
Okay, David, what else will you be doing? Will you be working to change in Haringey, and what will you be doing to achieve it?
Well, as a councillor, I'm going to be playing a full part in what I hope will be the administration of Robert Gorry. And I will be keeping in constant touch with local residents in order to identify problems and to do something about them, in some cases where necessary to take part in noisy campaigns for it. I've already been quite involved. I was the one who started the campaign to get the speed limit in Harringay Ward reduced to 20 miles an hour. That's a campaign which is now virtually assured of success. We're just about to present a petition to the council to have a safe pedestrian crossing over green lanes by the Queen's Head pub, so that children can get to North Haringey Primary School without having to dodge the traffic. It'll be much more of the same, and I hope that we will be able to be much more effective in power than we have been able to be because of the constraints of opposition. The list goes on as to the things that I would be doing, that I would be continuing to do. I'm doing what I can to help people who are disturbed by the increased freight traffic on the Gospel Oak to Barking railway line. Trying to help some parents who want to make some improvements to the playground at South Haringey Infant School. The list goes on, and I would just hope to be ever more effective. And of course, I will be helping people with their individual problems, as I've been doing for the past several years.
And what would your focus be as a Member of Parliament, David, if any different at all?
Well, I would be constantly on the lookout for how legislation would impact on this particular constituency and this particular ward. I feel that this hasn't been done effectively up until now. Two of the major problems of this ward are caused by the unintended consequences of government legislation. The lack of control of the subdivision of houses, family houses, into small flats is largely caused by the fact that under the law, councils have only 4 years in which to serve enforcement notices, and that makes it very difficult for them to enforce the laws on subdivision of houses, because it's quite easy for a landlord to say, well, I did it more than 4 years ago. If, say, as is the case with other sorts of changes, the council had 10 years in which to enforce, then the landlords would find that they had a much less easy ride. The other problem is betting shops. The 2005 Gambling Act gave very little power to the local authority to control the mushrooming of these establishments. And unfortunately, although the defects in the law have been long recognized, nothing's been done about it, with the result that we're now absolutely overflowing with them in green lanes. So it's to keep an eye out, how will that legislation affect my constituents, that I would hope to be effective. It's very important, I think, to remember that the job of a Member of Parliament is to act as a representative of his constituency in Parliament. It's not to act as a salesman, a local sales rep for the government in his constituency, and I would hope always to bear that in mind.
Thank you. You mentioned staying in touch with the residents just now, David. Can you tell us what you'd actually do to stay in touch with, making sure you understand what the residents' main concerns are?
Well, I would be of no use at all unless I was completely accessible. I continue to knock on doors, as I do, continue to ask what the problems are, because sometimes that's the only way you find out. Not everybody beats a path to your door. You sometimes have to beat a path to theirs. I will attend meetings of local groups. I will, if I can't attend them myself, I will ensure that they're covered.
Okay, David, is there anything else that you'd like to add that you haven't had a chance to say so far?
Yes, I have the privilege of being part of a very good team. Lynn Featherstone, who's the MP in Hornsey Wood Green, is an inspiration, and Robert Gorry, who is the leader of our team in the council, is both a joy to work with and also an inspiration. He's proved himself with a brilliant career in business. He's not the sort of person who's going to dump millions of pounds into Icelandic banks. As to my own personal qualities, well, as a barrister, I do have the ability to ask tough, sometimes abrasive questions, and not to be put off by half answers. At a recent public meeting, for example, I asked, trying to cut through all of the verbiage about the possible closure of the Accident and Emergency Department at the Whittington Hospital, whether anybody had actually done a survey or was planning to do a survey directed to the one simple question: if you close the Whittington Hospital, how many more people per year will die? I would hope to be pursuing similar tough questions, and if I had a public position, I might actually get some answers, which I didn't get on that occasion.
Okay, thank you very much, David.
Thank you.